What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. It's Thursday, time to give my game, talk about all the players I'd be starting and sitting this week. First up, tonight's game, Steelers at Bengals, 44.5 point total. Steelers 5.5 point road favorites. For the Steelers, Cincy, obviously great matchup for running backs and tight ends. Actually a negative matchup for wide receivers. Doesn't really matter though when you're facing a team like the Steelers. The only wide receiver you're looking at is DK Metcalf. If you've been rolling with him every week, I continue to do so. I have Metcalf in Dynasty. I'm under no consideration benching him, especially, if he's going to keep being utilized this heavily in the red zone, that really helps his floor and ceiling. And then you can't really take advantage of the tight end matchup. They rotate in 3 different tight ends. You never know which one's going to score. Usually it's none of them, but if one of them's going to score, you don't know which one it's going to be. They're all going to get like a couple of targets. And so with this being such a low volume passing attack, it's really just Metcalf or nothing from the wide receivers and tight ends. And it does seem like they're going to end up trading for a second wide receiver. So when that happens, we can kind of like see if we're going to start that player, if it impacts Metcalf. But for now, it's just Metcalf. Tough call with the running backs. Right now, I have Warren as a running back, 21. Gainwell, running back, 29. I think there's some variance there as well because now they're mixing in Caleb Johnson. If they push this into like a 3 running back by committee, and especially if Caleb becomes kind of like an early down grinder with no targets, you can't play him. If Gainwell then turns into no carries and a couple targets, you can't play him. And if Warren just kind of mixes in for a couple carries and a couple targets, you can't play him either. So there could be a very bad outcome for the Steelers soon. But for right now, I still think you probably play Jaylen Warren as a low-end running back too, and you hope that Caleb's role doesn't increase that much. But I will say it's concerning, and there's still a chance that tonight we see that happen where Caleb sees an increased role, and that would be very bad for everyone. So it's not great. I don't think you need to, and if you have someone else, you can easily bench both of these running backs, both Warren and Gainwell, but they're not the worst plays in the world because there's still also a chance that Caleb only mixes in for a couple of carries. Maybe he only gets like 5 carries. And at that point, you'll probably still have enough volume to where you could play Warren as a running back too. And then I would not stream Rodgers pretty much any week. Then for the Bengals side, continue starting Jamar Chase. No one else is a must start though. But honestly, like if we look back at last week, honestly, Flacco looked better than I figured he would look. They were playing against the Packers. Like the Steelers are a much weaker defense than the Packers. I think next week will be more when like we can start to trust this offense a little bit more, just because like he barely comes in last week, doesn't know the playbook, plays on Sunday, and all of a sudden they're playing again on Thursday. So it's not like he's learned that much between their last game and this game. Give them the mini bye, and maybe they can start to get going a little bit more next week. But also, again, this is a home game. The Steelers are not that good of a defense. Right now, T. Higgins is my running back or my wide receiver 31, but I have him in Dynasty. I'm playing him. And then Chase Brown right now, running back 21. I know Chase Brown has been pretty brutal this season, but I do think some positive regression is coming. The Bengals have 10 passing touchdowns to only 2 rushing touchdowns in the season. And one of those 2 rushing touchdowns was Jake Browning doing a quarterback sneak. So the quarterbacks, we counted for 11 touchdowns to just 1 for the running backs. It's not going to be 50-50. They're going to throw for more touchdowns than they run for. But I don't think Flacco rest of the season is going to have 92% of this team's touchdowns. I think eventually they're going to run some in, and I do think Chase Brown will be the one to do so. I also know that P. Ryan is mixing in more and more, but it didn't hit last week. But Flacco dumps off to running backs at such a high rate that I really do think like he had 2 targets, 2 receptions, 7 yards. I think over time he's going to average, a couple receptions per game. I think we can bake in like 3 receptions to floor here for Chase Brown. I mean, not like a floor because obviously the floor is 0, but we should expect like 3 to 4 receptions this week for Chase Brown. And if you mix that in, an okay chance of scoring most of the early down work, I still think he should grade out as a low end too, but I get it if you really just don't want to play him. And then Gesicki being out, or at least being expected to be out. I don't know if it's confirmed yet. I don't think that changes anything. You're not playing these backup tight ends in a super deep league. If you want to play Noah Fant, sure, but you're probably not playing the tight ends. I think it makes T. Higgins just a little bit more appealing. But again, I don't think it changes that much because Gesicki wasn't getting like that many targets every week. Sunday games kick off yet again in London. So for the West Coasters, 6:30 West Coast kickoff, 9:30 Eastern. check in the morning to make sure your players are playing. This week it's going to be Rams and Jaguars, 44.5-point total. Rams 7-point favorites. For the Rams, I would imagine that they hold Puka out one more week. They got the bye next week, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to throw him out there when he's not hurt, risk a setback, or when he is hurt, risk a setback, and when you could just hold him out this week, have him 100% after the bye, and then you're good to go. Like, I just don't see why you would do that. So Adams is going to drop a nuke, obviously play him, obviously play Kyron Williams, and then we get two streaming options at wide receiver with Tutu and Jordan Whittington. Whittington is the one that's going to fill the Puka role. Obviously, he's much worse than Puka, so don't expect that same production. He's not going to be a wide receiver 1, and he doesn't grade out as wide receiver 2 either. But Whittington is my wide receiver 39 right now, Tutu 46, and I could see Whittington trending up to like 35 to 36. Like, I think that's kind of where he'll settle among wide receivers this week. Again, if he's going to fill that role, he's going to get some designed looks. He's a player they really like. So over the years, or last season, really, you saw them talk about how much they like him as a player, but it's like they have Puka, right? So they don't really need to utilize him in that way. And he's not a one-to-one backup for him, but they trust him enough to where they will scheme him usage, and he's a good enough player where he will produce on that usage. I guess that's the best thing to say there. Whereas Tutu doesn't just like turn into Puka. Tutu kind of has his own role on the offense. So it definitely helps Whittington a lot more than Tutu, and I would play Whittington. I really think if you lost Puka, if you lost Garrett Wilson, you lost maybe Marv, doesn't play this week with a concussion, like I think Whittington's probably the best person you can add and play in that spot. But yeah, I think that kind of goes over the Rams part. Stafford, fine to stream. It really just comes down to what else you have. My quarterback 14. So again, if you've been streaming him, keep rolling with him. If not, I don't think it's a good enough spot where you have to drop someone to add Matthew Stafford. On the Jaguars side, there's a lot less to like. The Rams do have a strong defense, and I'm not really ever looking to play a secondary player against them. We got hope this week. So Coach Speak kind of has Travis Hunter. The talk that he might get more opportunities this week, that they're going to scheme him more usage. Honestly, I don't really want to play him until I actually see that happen. Like, they can say all they want that they'll utilize him more until they actually use him more in the offense, and this offense starts to click a little more to the passing game. I can't grade him any higher than like the wide receiver 40 range. I would still rather play Jordan Whittington ahead of Travis Hunter. But if Hunter has been a fringe option for you, especially for those of you in deeper formats, especially for those of you in 3 wide receiver or 2 flex leagues, I think it's viable this week because they did talk about getting him more targets. But overall, Brian Thomas Jr., high-end wide receiver 2. I think you're playing ETN as a low-end running back 2. I'm not super excited to play Trevor Lawrence, and so I would mostly stick to Brian Thomas Jr. and ETN. But again, in a 3 wide receiver league, you might be able to look to Travis Hunter this week. 1 o'clock games kick off with Saints at Bears, 46.5-point total. Bears 5-point home favorites. For the Saints, Chicago, great matchup for running backs, a pretty poor one for wide receivers. That doesn't really align with the Saints skill players, though. Kamara, Kendre, they're splitting the touches. You've got Taysom Hill lurking at the goal line. So I don't know if we can really take advantage of this matchup, but Kamara, my running back 24 right now, Kendre, running back 37. You're probably only going to Kendre in a pretty deep format, or if you're just decimated by injury, and understand he's probably not going to catch many passes or potentially any passes, so definitely not in full PPR. If the Saints can get a lead, I could still see like Kamara or Kendre hitting, right? Kendre can still have like 10 for 60 and a touchdown. Kamara could still rack up 5 receptions for 20 yards. He could still have an okay amount of carries. He could find the end zone. So like, there's merit to playing both of them. I just don't think either one of them is that great of a play. I don't think either one of them should be like locked and loaded every week in your running back 2 spot. The best play on the Saints remains Chris Olave. He's seeing amazing usage. I know the efficiency's low. I know that the matchup isn't great. But when you're going to project for like 10 targets every single week, you've got a high floor and a high ceiling, and you should be in starting lineups, especially in full PPR format. So even in the matchup, I think everyone should be starting Chris Olave this week. As for Shaheed, he pretty much is what he always is. Most weeks, you're going to be relatively disappointed with the production on average, but he's got the upside to win you a week. And so for players like this, Jameson Williams comes to mind as well. If you are a favorite by like 10, 15 points, it might be best to not play Shaheed, play someone else who projects for a more stable production. If you are a 10 or 15 point underdog, Shaheed makes for a great play because sure, the low end of the outcome could occur, but if he's in your flex or second flex spot and he does hit for one of his 100-yard and touchdown games, well, of course, that's really going to help you out. And if you're a 10 or 15 point underdog and he has a dud game, it doesn't hurt you as much because you were already projected to lose. And then I think Juwan Johnson, not as good of a play as he's been. When you have these backup tight ends back, when you have other players on the offense getting production, his snaps are still there, but the usage is not, so you don't have to be playing him. Then for the Bears, the Saints are a better matchup for wide receivers than running backs, and this just kind of looks like a nice bounce back spot for the Bears. You're playing at home. They kind of disappointed coming off the bye. They didn't play bad, but the passing attack could have been a lot better. One note in this spot is to check the weather on Sunday morning. It's probably going to rain before the game, and there's some wind in the forecast. But on Thursday, right, when we're making this video, you don't know what the weather is going to be like. Even Saturday, half the time, you don't know what the weather is going to be like. So on Sunday morning, if you look at the forecast, and really look also at the forecast, you can go to RotoGrinders Weather. That's the best site for that. It's free. But also look at the total. Like, check the total today, and then check the total on Sunday. The total drops by 2 points. And you see Roth on RotoGrinders is saying, oh, yeah, it's going to be super windy and rainy. That's bad. Right? Downgrade the passing attack. I'll account for all this in the projection, so you don't really have to do anything. But in your mind, downgrade the passing attack, downgrade these wide receivers, these tight ends, because wind is really bad. And when you mix it with rain and then the total drops, it's a bad thing, right? So check that on Sunday morning. Again, the projections will take that into account. Assuming the weather isn't terrible, though, which my guess is in the two other spots the next game as well, I don't think the weather is going to be so bad we're fading players. But assuming that's the case, Odunze is a must start. Beyond that, it really depends on DJ Moore. It kind of seems like he's going to play this week, but he was hospitalized after the game. It's kind of unclear how bad the injury is, though, because like he went to the hospital. That's not good, right? You don't go to the hospital if you're okay. But he also finished the game. Like he didn't like get hurt in the game, go to the hospital. He like finished out the game and then went to the hospital. So I don't really know what to make of that. We'll find out probably Friday and Saturday what his status is. I'm not super interested in DJ Moore if he does play, but if he misses, it's a good chance for Luther Burden to finally have that breakout. And he would be someone I'd be okay with in the flex spot, but we're just going to have to wait and see. The Friday practice report is really the one we care about. Aside from that, Swift, low-end running back 2. I'd avoid the tight ends. And then Caleb Williams is like a low-end quarterback 1 this week. It's a relatively thin week for streaming options, so I would say if you've got Caleb Williams, play him. So it's, again, Odunze, Swift, Williams, and then it kind of depends on DJ Moore. Next up, we've got Dolphins at Browns, 39.5 point total. Browns, 2.5 point home favorites. I think this is the lowest total game of the week. And again, this is the other potential spot for weather. There's probably going to be some rain in the game. There's the expectation of fairly strong winds, but we don't know exactly when those winds will happen. Are they going to happen during the game, before, or after? We don't really know yet. So again, check that on Sunday. For the Dolphins, the Browns are a brutal matchup for running backs, but it doesn't really matter. Like even if Achane only had like 15 carries for 30 yards, he's going to rack up a ton of receptions. He's got the upside to bust any one of those touches for a long touchdown. He'll be utilized in the red zone. Like you just have to play Achane every week. I don't care what the matchup is. So start Achane, start Waddle every week. And then I think honestly, just keep playing Darren Waller. If you added him and he's been getting the touchdowns, getting the production, like the snaps are finally there for him. They've ramped him up, and that way he's utilized heavily in the red zone. Like I just don't see, unless you have like, you know, a top like 7 or 8 tight end that you pretty much play every week. At that point, I might trade one of them. Like if you're just going to have Waller sitting on the bench every week, scoring all these touchdowns, either trade your starting tight end for an upgraded skill player, or just play like trade Waller and maybe like a running back for an upgraded running back. Like do something to where like there's no need to have 2 really solid plays at tight end. And again, this usage isn't necessarily super consistent every week. Sometimes he gets there with volume, sometimes with the touchdowns. I mean, I think he's scoring a touchdown every week, but some weeks the volume has been enough to where he didn't need to score a touchdown. But the point is, they don't have pass catchers. They have to use him in this offense, and every time they get to the red zone, they look his way, and that makes him a good play. For the Brown side, it is an absolute smash spot for Judkins. I mean, my goodness, like there's no way I could bench Judkins this week. I know he had a bad game last week. He definitely disappointed us on our underdog picks, but Miami is allowing 168.5 rushing yards per game against them. They're the number one matchup for scheduled adjusted yards per carry increase to running backs. Judkins fairly likely to score a touchdown, fairly likely to have 100 rushing yards this weekend. Beyond him, I'd really only play the tight ends, and I'm very excited if Njoku ends up being out for another breakout spot for Fannin. He kind of had a breakout in week 1. He kind of had a mini breakout last week. If he follows last week up with a really nice game this coming week, I feel like they keep holding Njoku out and they trade him. Like, I feel like that happens. So this is a big spot for Fannin. If he can go off, we might be able to utilize him as like a mid-range tight end 1 rest of the season. But again, if Njoku is out, I would play Fannin as a top 5 play. Like, I would really only be benching him if you had, like, I don't know, McBride, Kittle, assuming he plays, probably Tucker Kraft, and like Tyler Warren. I'm probably missing a name thrown in there as well. Laporta, like maybe those are like the only names I'd consider. But at that point, I might just play Fannin in the flex. Like if Njoku's not out there, he should be in your starting lineup. So again, play him, play Judkins. I don't know that you have to play anyone else. Like Judy does not look good out there. He looks like one of the worst wide receivers in the NFL. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel's not that good of a quarterback. He exceeded my expectations in the first game, kind of fell behind that last week. So again, he's probably a bad quarterback. It's just Fannin and Judkins on that team right now. Next up, we've got Raiders at Chiefs, 45.5 point total. Chiefs, massive 11.5 point home favorites. For the Raiders, this is obviously a very terrible spot. Has big time road underdogs in Arrowhead. This offense has continued to look dreadful every week, and they looked terrible against the Titans last week. Like, what are you doing? You have to look at least competent against them. It might get even worse because Myers is not practicing, likely because maybe he has a small injury, but they're going to end up trading him at some point. And so you lose him. You still don't have Bowers. Like, my goodness, there's a chance that they either score 0 or 1 touchdowns this weekend. You have to play Genty as a running back 2, but he's only a running back 2 this week. Michael Mayer, I mean, if you have Bowers and you added Mayer, just stream him each week that you don't have Brock Bowers. He's my tight end 15 right now, so not an amazing play, but I also have Myers projected in, and if I remove Myers from the projection, of course, Mayer is going to increase. He'll probably jump to like the tight end 10 or so, and it'll be a good streaming option. So kind of depends on that. Only other play is Trey Tucker. My worry is that the Chiefs are a very, very smart defense, a very good defense, and they know, this wide receiver room with these 2 rookies and Beck and Thornton, they can't get it done. And so if they just kind of sell out to stop Trey Tucker, which they can do, they have the talent to do that, they're not going to do anything. Like, it's unlikely that Genty is going to have some like smash day. It's unlikely that Mayer can go out there and produce consistently enough to move the ball down the field and score in the end zone. So if you just shut down Tucker, it's over. Like the Raiders can't do anything. So I think they're probably going to try and do that. So if Myers is out, people are going to assume that Trey Tucker is an amazing play, and he becomes a better play, maybe a flex play. But I'll be hesitant to bump him up too much in the projections because I know for a fact Kansas City is going to sell out to stop him. And it's not like you have to sell out that much to stop Trey Tucker. On the Chiefs side, obviously a whole lot more appealing. They might score 4. They might score 5 touchdowns this weekend. Could easily push for 30 points. I think they're projected for 28.5 right now, but they could score 30, 33 points this weekend. The Raiders are not going to sustain many drives, and that's the big thing because even if the KC offense isn't just like dominating every drive, if they're starting every drive in great field position, you're going to have a positive game script all week, and the touchdown is going to be much easier to come by. So fantastic spot for Isaiah Pacheco. He's someone that I'd probably trade for if you're super thin at running back, but you don't really have, the talent as skill player to like trade for a higher end option. You're like, I need a new running back, but I don't have anyone worth giving up or anyone that other teams will really want. Go for Pacheco. Try to send a lower offer for him. I've never really been a Pacheco truther in fantasy, but I'm expecting a solid game this week. He's clearly trending up in snaps. And for this offense, if we think they're going to be one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in the NFL rest of season, there are just going to be times where they get up in games, where they can lean on Pacheco in the second half, and he'll run into touchdowns. Of course, Kareem Hunt is always there to steal touchdowns in the red zone, but sometimes those will go to Isaiah Pacheco, and sometimes he'll score from further out. So only my running back 27 right now. I could see that bumping up to like 23, 24. We'll see. I'll play around with projections, but I think I'd play him as a running back too if you need him. And then obviously play Rashee Rice, play Patrick Mahomes, play Worthy in the flex spot, play Travis Kelce. One of those players is probably going to have a dud or at least a somewhat disappointing game. But when you are projected to do as well as the Kansas City Chiefs are this week, when you have the touchdown upside to score 4 or 5 times, you just got to be playing all those guys. Next up, we have a revenge game. Patriots at Titans, 42-point total. Patriots 7-point road favorites in Mike Vrabel's return to Tennessee after he was fired 2 years ago. Not only is Vrabel a player's coach, meaning the players love him, they're going to want to stomp the Titans in this matchup. Even, if this wasn't a revenge game, the Titans are by far the worst team in the NFL. So without the narrative, the Patriots are probably going to win this game easily. On the New England side, this is a get-right spot for the rushing attack. It doesn't mean they're going to, but it's a great spot for them to get right. The blocking has been horrible. They can't block anyone. It doesn't even matter if they spent their first pick on offensive linemen. They cannot block, but the Titans are the number one matchup for running back fantasy points. They represent a 41 rushing yard boost over expectation to a backfield. The Patriots are very likely going to build a lead early and run the ball a lot in the second half because it's important that they do that. They can win this game passing, but you're not going to advance far with no run game. Like, you have to figure out the run game at some point. So if they can get going this week, it'll give them confidence. So they got to figure the run game out. I really think they're going to lean on these running backs in the second half. It doesn't make them must starts, but Stevenson right now is a running back 20. Henderson, running back 26. I feel confident, honestly, projecting like at least 1, maybe 2 touchdowns for these running backs as a whole. Hopefully they split them. Hopefully it's not just like, Stevenson going out there having 10 carries for 19 yards, but scoring twice. It's like kind of frustrating games when those happen. Hopefully they split it. Hopefully the production is, or the usage, I guess, is close enough to 50-50 to where we can trust both these running backs at running back 2. I really think New England just wins this game like 40-10. The problem is, we don't know where the touchdown is going to come. So certainly you could play Douglas, you could play Booty, you could play Diggs. But Diggs is probably the only wide receiver I trust. You can certainly play Hunter Henry. But again, if this matchup sets up for them to run the ball a ton in the second half, if you play the skill player at wide receiver or tight end that doesn't score a touchdown in the first half, you're going to look at the second half being like, oh no, they might only throw the ball 5 times in the rest of the game. Hopefully my guy scores a touchdown in the second half. So it does open up a lower floor than you would expect from the wide receivers and tight ends. But even factoring that in, Diggs right now, my wide receiver 27, Hunter Henry, tight end 17. So neither must start, but not a terrible play there. Then the Titans side, fade everyone. Don't play anyone in this matchup. Like, I think Ridley is probably going to miss this game, but I'm not playing the backup wide receivers until they look good. Pollard and Spears are splitting time. I wouldn't want either of them. The Titans are dumpster fire. I think they might trade away Tony Pollard at some point. Could he be someone that could potentially go to someone like the Chargers? I don't know. But until something happens, until they look half decent, you just can't play these guys. Next up, we've got Panthers at Jets, 42.5-point total. Panthers, 1.5-point road favorites. For the Panthers, Chuba and Jalen Coker are expected to make their returns this week. That adds some variance to the projections for the side. I don't really see how you give Chuba the job back. Rico's put together back-to-back 200-yard games. I can promise you, Chuba Hubbard will not have a 200-yard game in his entire career. Like, Rico's just the better running back, and even a 50-50 split, I don't see how you justify that as a coaching staff. But Chuba's also going to get more work than Trevor Etienne did. So Rico is definitely going to take a hit. He's not going to be as featured as before. I think you still play Rico as a running back 2. I think Tet is a wide receiver 2. The problem with Tet is he's going to get shadow coverage from Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner, one of the best corners in the NFL. There's a very real chance that Tet has like 2 catches this week. Like, he is probably going to be shut down by Sauce. The problem with that is, okay, Coker, like, he takes out Renfro, but do we trust him in the first game? Probably not. Do we trust the tight ends? No. So there's really nothing to benefit. Usually you can say, okay, maybe we can go to the second wide receiver against the Jets here. The last 2 weeks, we really haven't had that opportunity because there's no clear-cut person that's going to benefit very much. So I think you probably still, again, play Tet as that low end too. But if you drafted Tet, you hit on him, but you also hit on a lot of other wide receivers, and he's always been on the fringes, this is a week to maybe put him on the bench. Fewer plays than you would maybe expect from the Panthers side this week. Then on the Jets, I honestly don't know how they're only 1.5 point underdogs. I know they're playing at home, but this team is terrible. They're not going to have Garrett Wilson this week. Justin Fields had negative 11 net passing yards last week, and now he's throwing to Reynolds, Aaron Smith, Tyler Johnson, and maybe Allen Lazard if he's healthy enough to play, / they might be trading him. So we don't know what that situation is going to look like to hold him out. Like, obviously, the only three you can start are Fields, Breece Hall, and Mason Taylor. And the thought process would be that Mason Taylor is now their wide receiver 1, but a lot of times we don't see that end up occurring with tight ends. It's like if it's a wide receiver, you throw them into that role. The tight end can only do so much, and with a very uncreative coaching staff, you're still basically asking Justin Fields to dump off to Mason Taylor a million times. I think you have to play Breece Hall because he has to do good. I mean, if he doesn't do good, they're going to get crushed here. But also, the Panthers have been a lot better than last year in the run game. They've been trending very positively against the run, so it's actually not that great of a spot for him. I don't know. I feel like if any of these three, like, play Breece Hall, but if Fields is on the fringes for you, if Mason Taylor's on the fringes for you, I understand that they might project okay because Fields is probably going to scramble like 10 times for 70 yards and a touchdown. And at that point, he's already scored you 13 fantasy points, so he doesn't need any passing yards to be like, okay, like you throw for 100 yards and no touchdown, and and you're still looking at 17 points there. But the floor is very, very, very low for everyone on this offense, so the only one I feel great about is Breece Hall, and I don't even feel that great about him. Final 1 o'clock game is going to be Eagles at Vikings, 43.5 point total. Eagles 2-point road favorites. For the Eagles, brutal matchup for wide receivers, but a good one for tight ends. Dallas Goedert, he's been really good this season, and the fact that he's being used in the red zone now is awesome. For years now, it's been like the usage is great, but they just completely forget that he exists when they get into the red zone. This season, they're completely forgetting that A.J. Brown exists, and they're just only looking at Dallas Goedert or running it in with Hurts. It's really weird, the switch that's been happening, but he's been great. I think you have to play him this week. I think you have to keep playing him every week that he doesn't disappoint. Like, until he has a horrible game, just keep playing Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts also must start, and I think Saquon is as well. Like, I'd be pretty surprised if you had 3 better running backs than Saquon when you factor in the flex spot. I don't think he's playing poorly as a player. I think it's more so that, like, the role is there. The blocking just isn't. Like, they're just not. Like, last season, there were gaping holes. And when you give Saquon even the slightest hole, he bursts through it for an 80-yard touchdown. The holes just aren't there. And you can't just run through a brick wall every play. He does sometimes, and he makes some great plays where he makes a bunch of guys miss. But for the most part, there's nothing there. And so it's difficult for him to get the production, but he's being featured. And Saquon Barkley being featured needs to be in your starting lineup. The tough call here is what to do with the wide receivers. Right now, A.J. Brown is my wide receiver 21. Devonta Smith is my wide receiver 36. That range is tough because, like, if I were to jump, it's not going to happen. But let's say Devonta Smith jumped up to like 20. It's actually not that much of an increase to the projection. Like, it's probably like a 1.5 increase. So there's not that much separating like the wide receiver 20 to 38, 39, like basically the Whittington range. That whole range is not that much different. So if you've got guys there that you feel good about, feel bad about, you can kind of play with those projections a little bit. What I will say is, how do you bench AJ Brown? Like, I feel like I can live with losing if I play AJ Brown and he gives me 8 fantasy points and I'm like, I tried, right? But if I bench AJ Brown and then he goes off for like 8 for 120 to score, and I played some scrub who has like 1 catch, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I benching my second round pick, a guy who we know is one of the 10 best wide receivers in the NFL, has a featured role? Honestly, still, even I kind of said he doesn't have a role in the red zone. He still has a decent role in the red zone this season. Like, I don't know. I just don't see a world where you could actually bench him. So I think you got to play him. I have Devonta Smith. I'm playing him this week. I think you just got to put these guys in starting lineup. I will say with Devonta Smith, like, he was an inch away from adding like an 80-yard touchdown to his already 4 for 49 day last week. So if that had happened, we'd be thinking about him a lot more differently. So I know it's annoying, this wide receiver room, but I feel like you just play the Eagles and you hope that at some point the offense figures itself out. Then for the Vikings, I'm expecting Wentz to start, but basically everyone just gets a slight, moderate downgrade if it ends up being J.J. McCarthy. I would continue streaming Jordan Mason as a running back 2. Justin Jefferson, obviously play him. I'd also play Addison as a wide receiver 3 or in like the flex spot or the second flex spot. Addison is sort of like Devonta Smith where, he's going to have some games where it's frustrating because you're like, this is such a talented player and you're not even looking in his direction. But he's talented enough to where I just think you have to play him. They're both on teams that don't really spread the ball around that much. So if you run into any sort of passing volume on either side here, both Devonta Smith and Jordan Addison have the ceiling to have great games, 100 yards, 120 yards, multiple scores. They can do that, and players that are capable of that, the wide receiver position, I think just kind of have to be in your starting lineup. And then I wouldn't play Hawkinson. He just has no role right now. 4 o'clock games kick off with Giants at Broncos, 40-point total. Broncos, 7-point home favorites. For the Giants, Dart's been playing awesome. He needs to not take so many hits. He's probably going to get hurt. I mean, he got hurt last week, but if he continues taking this many hits, he's not going to last a full season. So he's got to figure that out. But on a 1-game sample, you're not really worried too much about injuries. So stream Dart, start Scadaboo at running back 2, start Wandale in the flex spot. This is another fairly condensed offense, so if they get going at all, we know where the production is going to be. You can pretty much trust that Wando is going to rack up 4 or 5 receptions at worst. I will say also he should mostly avoid Patrick Surtain, and so, it's still a bad matchup for Wando, and while I don't think the Giants do all that much on offense, we kind of thought that last week, and they still looked pretty good. And then also, again, if you're the wide receiver not getting Surtain, because Surtain's not going to shadow Wando because he'll play in the slot a lot, They'll still get some matchups against him, but there'll be enough routes that Wandale will run where he's not matched up against Surtain to where I think you're playing him kind of at that 2 flex spot. More in the flex spot, more at a 3rd wide receiver spot would be great. Then for the Broncos, this is a bounce back spot for Sutton. So Sutton last week had Sauce Gardner. He did nothing. This week, Giants are technically the number 1 matchup for schedule adjusted wide receiver targets. It's a spot where Sutton should go right back to seeing good volume. He should be in your starting lineup. I also think you're probably playing Dobbins at running back 2, but I'll note that he's doing the same thing as he did last year, where he started last year off super hot, and then the efficiency dropped as the season went on. This season, started off super hot, and the efficiency has been dropping. He also only has 9 total receiving yards over the last 4 weeks combined. He has no role in the passing game right now, and so he needs the touchdown. He needs a lot of yardage. Only grading out as my running back 25 right now. The floor is very low. Very real chance he has 10 carries for 40 yards, no receptions, and you get 4 points in full PPR, especially if the Giants were to pull ahead in this week, which they could absolutely do given how they're playing. So Sutton is the only clear must start on the Denver side. Again, I think you can play Dobbins. You could play Engram if you think the production continues as kind of a low-run tight end play. Maybe stream Bo Nix. Again, it's not a great week for streaming, so he's going to grade out in that 11 to 15 range where he's viable. But aside from Sutton, I'm not really pumped to play any Broncos player this week. Next up, we've got Colts at Chargers, 48.5-point total. Chargers, 1.5-point home favorites. For the Colts, someone depends on the status of Josh Downs. He's in concussion protocol right now. I don't know if he's going to pass that, but it would really only impact Pittman. If Downs is out, Pittman must start. If Downs plays, Pittman's a really good play. I don't think he's a must start, but he's going to project in that general wide receiver 30 range. And then Jonathan Taylor, Warren, definitely play them. And then I would say Daniel Jones, strong streaming option this week. He gives you that chance for the rushing touchdown, which really helps quarterback projections out. And then also, this game has a close spread. It's a high total. There's a chance to shoot out. And you just kind of want the players on another relatively condensed offense here. So play JT, Warren, Daniel Jones, and probably Pittman in all circumstances, but definitely play Pittman if Downs is out. Then for the Chargers side, the Colts defense is really banged up. And so this is a great matchup for wide receivers. That is not good news when you're taking on the Chargers. I also am pretty sure Quentin's going to return this week. Don't quote me on that, but I think he's going to. If he doesn't return, definitely play Ladd and Keenan. If he does return, I think you still play all three of them, but they're not must starts. They're all more like low end wide receiver twos. Vidal also grading out as a great like running back too. He's my running back 18 right now. That ranking could change a bit, but it won't change that much. Like he's not going to drop to like 30. He's going to be in that general like 17 to 21 range. So if you added him, definitely play him this week. And then I know that Herbert has, kind of taken a step back from how hot he was to start the year, but it's a great spot for him. I would play him as a mid-range quarterback one this week. So pretty much start every single Chargers player that's starting, except I don't trust the tight ends yet. Gadsden's still just a stash for me. Next up, we've got Commanders at Cowboys. 54.5 point total. Commanders 2-point road favorites. For the Commanders, this is one of the higher total games you will see all season. So when in doubt, as a tiebreaker, start players on both sides of this game. We could easily see, I don't say easily, we could see both teams score into the 30s here, but we're easily going to see both teams score into the 20s. There's going to be touchdowns to go around, production and yardage to go around as a tiebreaker. Play the person in this game. For the Commander side, Daniels is the quarterback one on the week. JCM is a running back 2. Debo and McLaurin, because I think McLaurin's going to play, are wide receiver 2s. And then Ertz is a strong streaming option as my tight end 14 right now. You can do whatever you want against Dallas. And with the game being at Dallas, that side is going to perform well, especially with Lamb back. So truly start everyone here. Then for the Dallas side, pretty much the same. Dak, Javonte, Lamb, Pickens, Ferguson. They're not all going to drop nukes, but all of them need to be in your starting lineup this week. Final 4 o'clock game is going to be Packers at Cardinals, 45-point total. Packers, 6.5-point road favorites. For the Packers, the Arizona defense has shown a lot of holes recently. This game is also in a dome, and so we should see pretty strong efficiency on the Packers side. Jacobs, Tucker Kraft, clear must starts this week. But beyond that, it's a little bit tough. Golden and Dobbs projecting that general like 30 to 35 range for wide receivers. Love right now is my quarterback 15. I think there's merit to starting all three of them, but you have to understand that the variance on the Packers side is relatively high. They could easily run for 3 touchdowns. They could easily just spread the ball around a lot in the passing game. Maybe one of those secondary wide receivers behind Dobbs and Golden hits for a big play or a long touchdown. If Wicks were to miss this week, then I'd for sure start both Golden and Dobbs. But if Wicks is going to play, they're really no more than like wide receiver 3s. Like I think that's kind of how they grade out this week. It was a nice little post by Rookie Bunk for Golden. He clearly got more schemed usage. Hopefully that continues, but I don't know if I fully trust Dobbs or Golden until we see Wicks out. But again, a wide receiver 3 is still startable. It's just neither one is a clear wide receiver 2. Then for the Cardinals, all comes down to injuries. Like, I don't know who's going to start this week, so we can't really do too much of a breakdown here. Brissett is the quarterback you want if you are starting Cardinals players, but they said if Kyler's healthy enough to play, he will start, and it kind of seems like he's going to be, so that's unfortunate. Then we just got to see if Marv passes concussion protocol. We probably won't know that by Friday or until Friday or Saturday. Green Bay also has an elite defense, and so if Marv's going to play, he's only a flex play. If he's out, I wouldn't play any of the backup wide receivers. Trey McBride's a must start either way, but other than McBride and other than maybe Marv in the flex spot, I don't think you have to play anyone else here. I don't trust Bam Knight or Michael Carter. They're not going to find success on the ground. They're not going to be winning this game. You can pray one of them falls into the end zone, but that's not even overly likely. Both are outside my top 30 running backs this week, and I wouldn't start the quarterbacks. Like, it truly would just be definitely start McBride, start Marv in the flex spot if he plays, but don't consider anyone else on the Cardinals this week. Sunday night game is going to be Falcons at 49ers, 47-point total. 49ers 2-point home favorites. For the Falcons side, pretty simple. Start Bijan in London every single week, regardless of matchup. And then Pitts always comes down to matchup. There's nothing about this particular matchup that makes me want to avoid him. So he's a tight end 10 to 14, that sort of range. For the 49ers, and again, just no one else on the Falcons, even worth going over. For the 49ers side, my guess is that Purdy and Pearsall miss one more week, but that Jawan and Kittle do both play this week. We sort of have to just wait on the Friday practice report to know that for sure. Either way, start McCaffrey and then start Kittle if he's active. And if he's inactive, I think Tonjes is a good streaming option. So basically just start the starting tight end and start McCaffrey. If Kittle does return, Bourne takes a hit. he would project as my wide receiver, because I'm projecting Kittle in right now. He'd project as my wide receiver 34. If Kittle is out, then it makes Bourne more of like a wide receiver 2, honestly, and he continue having great games. No one else I'd consider if Kittle is playing. So Kittle takes such a large target share that you want to play McCaffrey, you want to play Kittle, and maybe Bourne. But if Kittle is out, it opens up a lot more. So you'd be playing Bourne, you'd be playing Tonjes, and you could maybe play Jawan in the flex spot. That one's probably a little bit more thin until we like see it from him. But it kind of just seems like the connection between Mac Jones and Bourne is just so good that he just doesn't feel like throwing to Jawan, which Jawan's been very frustrated for on the sideline. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I would obviously play Bourne over Jawan because he's been phenomenal. I think it's 142 receiving yards in back-to-back weeks. Next up, first of 2 Monday night games is going to be Bucs at Lions, 52.5 point total. Lions 5.5 point home favorites. For the Bucs, Godwin's out, Igbuka's out. It does seem like Mike Evans will return this week, though. It is technically risky that they play on Monday night, but number 1, I'm pretty sure he's going to play. Number 2, I think we're going to know. Number 3, you could just roster like a Tez Johnson or a Sterling Shepard, and if he was out, just play them. So there's a lot of outs here to where like you should assume you're playing Mike Evans, and if not, have a backup. But again, if he plays, start Baker, start Rachaad White, start Mike Evans, and honestly, Cade viable as a streaming option. If Mike Evans were to be out, you could maybe go to Sterling. You could maybe go to Tez Johnson. I would say that there are probably better fringe options this week. Whittington comes to mind again as the number 1 option, and I would maybe even prefer Tutu. But you could definitely do it, Sterling or Tez. The problem is like you don't only do that if you have Mike. I think Mike's going to play. And so if you don't have Mike and you're like, oh, I'm going to stream Tez this week, okay, but if Mike ends up playing, like Tez is obviously not as good of a play. So I probably wouldn't risk that personally outside of like a deep league. Then for the Lions side, it's pretty much the same as always. Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and Laporta are must starts. JMO is that low floor, high ceiling flex play that we talk about. If you're projected to win, yeah, maybe lean away from him sometimes when it's close. If you're projected to lose, you always want to have him in the starting lineup. This week, they're playing the Bucs, and the Bucs are one of the clearest pass funnels in the NFL over the last couple of years. So if there was ever a spot to play JMO, it's now. If there was ever a spot to stream Goff, it's now. And if there was ever a spot to sit Monty, it's also probably now. He's like the pure early down grinder, and this is just a spot where you don't run the ball. You don't really see efficiency on the ground. So I probably would not play Monty this week. The second Monday night game, final game of the week, will be Texans at Seahawks, 41 point total, so low total here. Seahawks 3-point home favorites. For the Texans, I'm interested to see what the split is going to be for the running backs coming off of the bye. The hope is that Woody Mark can take over as at least the clear 1A, the clear starter there. But we don't really have any sort of clear indication right now what direction that's going to go in. I wouldn't play Chubb, definitely. I probably wouldn't play Woody Marks either. But if you've been wrecked by injuries, I suppose you could just cross your fingers, put Woody Marks in the running back 2 spot, hope he gets like 12 or 13 touches, although you'd probably play him in the flex spot. Hope he gets like 12 or 13 touches and then emerges at the starter. But I don't know how much I trust that right now. And then start Nico. And none of the other tight ends, wide receivers, just see enough volume, so we're starting them behind Nico. Then finally, Seahawks side, JSN is a must start, but honestly, no one else is. Ken Walker and Charbonnet are inexplicably splitting the workload right now, while Barner, he's had some good games. I just don't see how you trust that. He had 24 yards per reception last week. That's not sustainable at any position, but really at the tight end position as well. He's scoring touchdowns at a high rate. I don't know if that's going to continue. So if you really want to stream Barner, you can. Again, I know it's frustrating having Ken Walker and Charbonnet, and even the coaching staff this week is like, yeah, we got to figure this whole run game out because we're getting production everywhere else, but we're weirdly not getting the production we're expecting there. Okay, Charbonnet is literally the least efficient running back in the entire NFL right now, and Ken Walker is one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL. I don't know, maybe stop splitting the workload and play the guy who's been super efficient. Your run game would be doing better if you stopped giving the guy averaging 2.9 yards per carry the football. Give it to the guy who's averaging nearly 5 yards per carry, who has way more explosiveness. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe they'll figure that out at some point, Maybe he'll explode at some point, but it is crazy that they continue to split because by any metric, pure yards per carry, underlying efficiency, PFF grade, I don't even care what you prefer using. Every single metric has Charbonnet way over here at the bottom and Ken Walker way over here at the top. And I just don't get why we're not seeing more of a workload to Ken Walker. But until it happens, you can't trust him. So really, it's only JSN that I trust on Seattle. Sam Darnold, he's been playing great. And if you've been streaming him, you can keep going to him this week. But the Texans have a great defense. The Texans are coming off bye. It helps that he's at home, but he's fragile because he needs touchdowns. He doesn't run it. And against a really good defense in a really low total game coming off bye for them, I don't know how much I trust Sam Darnold this week. So that'll do it for this one. Again, the projections are updated every single day. They're updated, especially, Sunday morning, Saturday, the projections will be a lot better. And if you have access to those, please use the app if you have iOS. It's so much easier than going to the website to just pull out your phone, open up the app, and see what the projections are. So check that out, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. I'll be back tomorrow. It's one of my favorite underdog plays this week. That, my friends, is the end of this one. And thank you all for watching.